We are live. We are live again. Hopefully, I don't crash this time. I probably will. Everything will probably crash. But we are live again. This is Money Mo Media to talk about what's going on up here. Um, yeah, big news happened today. Paul George opted out. He will now be an unrestricted free agent. He declined that option. That was the talk of a lot of things with the Clippers and with him over the past, I'd say month or so. So what that means is that the Warriors trade is dead. Any trade involving Paul George is essentially dead. Now there are avenues to where Paul George can be traded. I think Bobby Marks was the one that mentioned that, but this is the big story. An opt-in and trade scenario is now gone. Paul George can either walk and go to, say, Philadelphia, let's say Orlando. He can even go to San Antonio. That's a spot that does have a max slot open that nobody's really talking about. Maybe they get into it. I highly doubt it, but it could be a thing. So now, listen, it's on PG, right? It could be where I mean our good friend Armand's tuning in from X. Armand, thanks for stopping by, man. He says say no to DeMar. Listen, I'm just giving it to you how Clipper fans feel right now. And Clipper fans at this point, Armand, are saying, listen, we are done with the Paul George experiment. We are done with his negotiation tactics. It's so funny, right? All this stuff came out about just an hour ago, and it all came out in succession. It goes LeBron says that he's going to take a discount to try to improve the team. It was all confirmed that he was going to get a max deal and accept that, right, with the Lakers. Now it comes out that, hey, we want to sign better players. I'm going to restructure my deal or take less so that we can improve the roster around me, which is something that he should be doing. And then Paul George, right after that, it's announced, hey, nah, I want to get as much money as possible. Kind of weird, isn't it? It's just kind of funny how that stuff works out. Players taking less money to improve the team and keep everything together. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it, Clipper fans? Kawhi did it. Said, hey, I'm going to take slightly less than the max. Okay, cool. That means everyone will be back, right? That's what he's saying. Everyone's going to be back, right? Like, I'm taking less. Everyone's going to do the same thing, right? Paul George said, nah, I want as much money as possible. Bring me my money after having a stinker of a playoffs. So Clipper fans are pretty upset right now because he could have opted in and then said, "Hey, I want to be traded to a team so you guys can get assets back. I want to help you guys out. You gave me a contract extension in 2020 and I didn't live up to it." Obviously, he's never going to say that, but he really hasn't. I'll do you solid. Didn't do it. Armand said, "Any chance you could see Harden leaving?" There is a chance. Now, I'd put it at probably 5%, maybe 10% chance of that even happening. Um, but again, I don't think that Harden is the guy here that we have to worry about as Clipper fans. I think he's been pretty adamant about coming back and staying with the Clippers. I think that's a big point for him that he wanted to stay. Now there is talk about him waiting on PG to make his decision, and I'm assuming he will. But Russell Westbrook just opted in this morning. I believe Harden's not going to get anything close to what PG got. I don't think he will on the market either if he even tries to test that. So I think that the Clippers are where he wants to be. Now the deal that he's going to get, I don't know. I would do maybe like a 3 for 90. Obviously he's probably going to get more than that. Probably like a 3 for 100. Armand. So listen, I don't think that Harden's the guy that Clipper fans should be worrying about. And to be honest with you, a lot of Clipper fans really respected the way Harden played in the playoffs. I mean, this is a guy, yes, he did have a few bad games, but the thing and the difference between Harden and Paul George is that Harden is a floor general, and I know there's a lot of talk about his, dribbling and pounding it into the floor. He did do a good amount of that. But James Harden won them one of the games. At game 4, he won them that game down the stretch. He has the ability to get the ball to guys in their spots. He had double digit assists in a lot of those games. He had 20 plus points in a lot of those games. I feel like he brings a lot more to the offensive end than Paul George did in the playoffs. And that, Clipper fans see that. Clipper fans understand that. And to be honest with you, I've seen a lot of the talk about what the fans have been saying, and they love Harden. They want him back. Paul George, on the other hand, this is the most slander I've seen Clipper fans give Paul George in a long time. A long time. And it's not just because of his playoff stuff. It's the stuff that happened after the season, saying you don't really care about winning a championship, saying that, you want to test the waters, declining this option and not helping the team if you are going to leave. Now look, he could still come back. Right? The Clippers can still offer him a max. They can budge on their offer, but all reports are that the Clippers are not budging on that offer. And what are they doing? Their offer is probably like a 3 for 149. Now, if we remember, Kawhi Leonard got a 3 for 152, I believe, somewhere around there. It wasn't a full max, but Kawhi Leonard did get slightly more, probably around the same, I'd say. So that's the Clippers' offer right now. And at this point, the Clippers are probably saying, oh shit. Oh shit. Either we up our offer or he's gone and we don't get anything back. Because I think it's very clear that the Clippers do want him back. But it's pretty clear that they don't want to give him the max contract that he seeks and desires by all accounts. It seems like that's what he really wants. And I don't know. I don't think that it'll be Orlando. I like that fit with Orlando. I really do, because you're getting a 20 plus point per game veteran that was an all-star this year, was an all-star the year before that. I get it. They do have a lot of wings, and that's a little bit concerning because they have Franz, and I know Mo Wagner just declined his option, I believe. But they have Franz and Paolo, and they have Markel Fultz, which he'll probably be on the move too. But you have all these things going on, right? You have all these wings and young players, and you have Wendell Carter, and you have all these guys. I don't know if Paul George fits into that unless they just make him a spot up shooter. I think Klay's a better fit for Orlando just because they need that kind of guy, even though, I thought that some of their draft picks would pan out. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name that the Orlando Magic pick. I actually have him in fantasy. But he was kind of tagged as like a Klay Thompson type shooter that they drafted last year. They didn't get him any playing time. So I think Philly for Paul George is probably the best bet. It's probably the guy that it's probably the situation I think fits him the most and gives him the best chance to win a championship if he does leave the Clippers. Because you pair him up with Joel Embiid, and I know, and I've said this on many lives in the past, is that I know that there is a big concern with Joel Embiid's health. That's a big issue. But the fit you can't deny. Having Maxi and PG and Embiid together, that's a pretty good fit. I could see that working pretty well. Now, they wouldn't have a lot to spend outside of that, so you'd have to kind of put together a bench. That's the problem with the new CBA and the new big threes and all that. That's why Phoenix tried it and it didn't really work because they didn't really have a bench. They didn't have a point guard because they couldn't really afford one. Honestly, they could. They just decided not to get one for whatever reason. By the way, this logo, oh my lord. This new Clippers redesign it's chef's kiss. It's so beautiful. But in terms of, Paul George and that fit with Philly, that's the best fit. And I think that that's the team that's threatening the Clippers the most because they are willing to offer him that huge max deal. And the Clippers, I believe, can't offer Paul George 5 years. There's a rule that I think Bobby Marks mentioned that I'll probably look up right now. He mentioned something about the Clippers. I don't know if you guys can see the screen, but I'm trying to go on X right now and see what he said. So these are the 4 scenarios for the Clippers. So there are sign and trades available. There are. You can do a sign and trade with a team over the cap even. But again, and I mentioned this on the radio when I do radio, the teams that acquire Paul George, they're hard capped, right? So it's hard for them to do anything after they get him. And that's a big concern for a lot of these teams because you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, yeah, we get PG, but we have to do other things in order to improve our team. So that's where that sign and trade now really comes into account because it's going to be really tough for them to do anything like that. But these are all the scenarios that you can possibly do, and Bobby Marks has done such a great job of putting it in these terms. I should probably not make that full screen so you guys can see the full thing, but um, there we go. That's it's a little bit better. And it's hard to see. Sorry if it's hard to see, but um, essentially this is what it's going to be. Um, and I don't know if I don't know what the scenario is after after PG leaves. Do you go get DeMar DeRozan? Do you go get an MLE guy like Kelly Oubre? Because I think it's true that you can't. What's the situation? Like they can only sign a guy, MLE guy. Like I know people are thinking like, oh well, now that opens a max slot because that's what PG's slot was. That's not how it works. Okay, especially with this new CBA, it's kind of tough. Let's shrink that a little bit so you guys can see. Hopefully, you guys can see that a little bit better. Um, but it's a little bit tough, right? When you get into these scenarios where a max guy leaves or close to max guy leaves, because he can't really sign another max slot guy, right? And that's been the issue, right? So you can't go and just say, "Hey, we'll go." I mean, honestly, there's no max players left on the market, are there? OG Anunoby signed. Pascal Siakam signed. DeMar DeRozan's not going for a max, so you can't really get him. And my good friend Armand brought this up. Say no to DeMar. I like the DeMar fit with the Clippers. I do. For whatever reason, I do. And I understand. Like I get the fact that DeMar's a mid-range player, and you already have Kawhi, and Bulls fans hate DeMar DeRozan. I get it. I do. I understand. It's kind of the same thing with PG and the Clippers. It's like, yeah, this guy did put up 20 plus points per game, but there's a lot of things that he does that we just do not like. I feel like Bulls fans with DeMar and Clipper fans with PG are kind of in the same boat here. It's like, yeah, sure, he is a pretty good player, but we just don't want to see him. We just don't want it. And I like the fit with DeMar on the Clippers. I just do for some reason. Um, and again, that may be the only thing that you can get. Right? Who else are you going to sign? I like the Kelly Oubre fit. I actually really do. But again, you're going to have to pry him away from some. I don't even think he's a free agent. I don't know if anyone can correct me, but I don't think that he's even a free agent. Maybe he is. Maybe he just signed a 1 year. Maybe he's a 1-and-1. I can't really remember, but that would be a guy that I would honestly like on the Clippers. So again, Paul George opted out. It's either put up the money for the Clippers in a max deal, because it seems like that's the only thing that he's going to accept right now, or you lose him and he walks and you don't get anything. That's what sucks, because I know, like, it sounds like I'm whining, but you know, there's all this smoke about, you know, what can you get from the Warriors? And it seems like the Clippers wanted Kuminga, right? It seems like that was the guy that they wanted. They really wanted Kuminga. And I don't think the Warriors were willing to meet that. I really don't. And honestly, that's on them, right? If you want to get a Paul George type player, you're going to have to put up a good player to get him. And they didn't. They didn't want to. So for the Warriors, where do they go? Because this just dropped too today. A little bit after that, Klay Thompson will not be back. And again, that's another big deal, because the suitors, as I mentioned, They were, let's see if I can get up that tweet that I posted. It was basically just what Sham said. I just kind of wanted everyone to see it. So the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Mavericks are the strong suitors for Klay. I don't know what his situation is either. I don't know if he wants a huge deal. I don't think any team's going to give him anywhere close to what he wants, honestly, just based off of how his tenure ended with Golden State. If we all remember back, the last game that he played as a Warrior, I guess for now, if this is all true, he went 0 for 10 from the field in that playing game against Sacramento. 0 for 10. And that leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because he did not have that good of a year. And honestly, in 2023, Klay Thompson did have a pretty good year. He had one of his better years in the second half of the season in 2023. That's when they got to the second round and lost to the Lakers. But obviously, in that series, he wasn't as effective, right? He was not the same Klay Thompson. And this year, it just looked like he's taken even more of a decline. So I'm curious to see what he gets, honestly, on the market. This is a guy that maybe a fresh new change for him could help. Maybe new scenery could help. We all know how important he was to the Bay. I mean, look at right here. He was a champion. This guy won 4 titles. He's a made man. It's going to be crazy to not see Klay Thompson on the Warriors. And it also mentioned, look, he's open to a sign and trade too, so he's willing to help the Warriors at least. I don't know if that happens, but it is on the table. And this is just a crazy situation as well. If the Lakers get him, I like it because it seems like they're trying to just go shooting. I mean, that's why they got Dalton Connect. Dalton Connect was a really good pick by the Lakers. I really like that one. So, and D'Angelo Russell opted in today as well. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't see a D'Angelo Russell and Klay Thompson swap. I don't. It could happen, maybe. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see that happening, but it could. I mean, listen, I've been wrong about a lot of things in terms of what I think and what happens. I think the consensus was that Paul George was going to be a Warrior. That was like everybody was talking about that, right? And for whatever reason, just never happened. I think it was due to the fact that, um, yeah, guy brings up a good point. Courage FT, thanks for coming on, man. They do need to dump CP3. I agree with you, but it's tough to do that, right? It's very tough to do that because that means that you need to get off of that contract, which is about 30 million, I believe. If I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but that's what I read. And I don't think there's a lot of teams that will help the Warriors out, right? Who's going to help the Warriors out? Unless it's a 3-team deal and one of the tanking lottery teams takes him again, and much like the Wizards did, and then you can flip him after that. But it's going to be hard to dump CP3. They could just eat the money and say, hey, good luck on the open market. I think they're going to try their best to see if they can facilitate a trade to get rid of him. But again, it's tough with his contract. That's why it's so tough with some of these guys and their contracts with the new CBA. You got to match deals and you got to make sure you don't get over the first or second apron. You be hard capped and all this stuff. I'm not an expert on it, but it's way more difficult to just say, "Hey, we're going to dump salary nowadays." So I appreciate the comment, but again, it's tough to do. I know the Warriors are trying to. Um, you say dump CP3, give up other guys to lower the cap space. That could be a thing. It could be. You're gonna have to attach something good to CP3 to get him off. That's usually what teams try to do, right? They try to attach a young asset or a guy that's disgruntled with that bad contract to get him off the team. But Courage, what do you think they should give up? You think they should give up Moody? Attach Moody with the CP3? Attach Wiggins with CP3? Looney? I don't even think a CP3 and Looney trade package would wow a lot of people. But again, they could do they're going to have to probably attach a pick or a young player to CP3 in any deal to get off of him and dump him. Because releasing him you just have to eat the money, and I think it would count towards the cap. Again, I'm not an expert, but it's not going to be easy to do stuff like that. and they would love to get off of CP3. I think in his deal, that was just something that I don't think really worked. It worked a little bit, like it wasn't a horrible fit, but I think it, with the youth movement now in the NBA and with the way the Warriors are trying to go, um, and I agree with you, Courage. If Warriors, he mentions a great point. If the Warriors don't move anybody, right, then Curry's time here is limited. He's still an all NBA level guy. Curry is still performing at that high level to where you can still provide a good team around him and you could probably have some good success. And I haven't really looked at what Warriors fans have felt about this Paul George declining his option thing because they won't get him. I haven't really heard what they've said about that. But that was a move. If you're still in the theory and the thought process of, hey, we want to extend Curry's championship window, we want to make sure that we have a good team around Steph Curry as long as he's still putting up 25, 27, 30 points a game, then that was the trade you make, right? That's where you give up a big asset like Kuminga to keep that championship window intact. And you're right. He is even going to be older, but he's still all NBA level. He's still that good. He's still one of the better shooters in the game right now. I could understand like moving, just wasting this era if Steph Curry has declined, right? I could understand if Steph Curry had a steep decline and the team wasn't that good, then you could keep everyone and just say, screw it, we'll just ride it out. But he's still performing at that Steph Curry level, right? Where he still instills fear into teams whenever they play him. He's still at the top of their scouting report when they go and face the Warriors. So now what do you do around that? Because Klay's not coming back. You still have CP3 on your roster. I'm curious to see what the Warriors do because they have some things to do here. Do you just let the young guys develop like Kuminga and Moody? Because I love Kuminga and Moody. I think those two guys are really good. Those are two really good assets. And you have Podziemski and you have Trace Jackson Davis. That core right there, those four, I think are pretty good. I wouldn't move off of them. But now obviously the Warriors have different thoughts and different things that they want to do there. So I'm curious to see what the Warriors do now that Klay is basically confirmed to be gone. In terms of this Lakers thing that I have on the screen, this is how it should be, right? This is how it should be. And I'm going to highlight something here for you. This right here. James would be willing to take a pay cut, and I don't know why it cut off at land, but he'd be willing to take a pay cut to land somebody good and better players. That's what you should be doing in his situation. That's what you should be doing when you're an older player, Paul George. You should be doing these kinds of things to better your team when you're older, especially. And LeBron's won 4 championships and he's doing this. LeBron could have easily said, hey, I won you guys a title in LA. I've won 4. I want to get as much money as I possibly can while I'm still performing at an all NBA level. I was just talking about Steph Curry still playing at a high level in his mid 30s. LeBron's playing at an all NBA level in his late 30s, almost 40. And he's willing to do this for the team. Now, obviously, he could still accept the max. Nothing is set in stone right now. But all of the reports coming out today are that LeBron is willing to take a pay cut to improve the Lakers. And that is insanely good for the team. He doesn't have to do this, but he is. And a lot of players should be doing this, especially now. Look, if you're a guy that was a reclamation project in late in your career and you revitalize your career, right? And then you ask for a lot of money, fine. Fine, I get it. But every player that's made already, DeMar DeRozan, Paul George, LeBron James, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, even. These guys that have CP3 too, Klay Thompson as well. All of these veterans that have already been there and done that or are seeking a ring or whatever, they should be taking pay cuts to win especially the guys that have won a championship. In Klay Thompson's case, I get it because he's not chasing a championship. He just wants to get money and be comfortable in a situation. And Kurd, you're right. PG being greedy for money rather than winning a ring. I'm not going to put those words out there. Like, I understand you're trying to get your bag, but in his situation and in his case, he hasn't won a championship. Imagine saying Paul George is an NBA champion, what that does to his legacy. Where does that put him up amongst the greats? He's a 9-time All-Star, many-time All-Defensive Team. He should be focused on winning a championship and winning a ring, not getting the most money possible. I'm all for guys getting a bag. I get it. But he's gotten plenty of bags over his career. Shouldn't now be about, and it's not like the Clippers are lowballing him to the point where it's like disrespectful. It's like not even that much less than a max. Kawhi already signed his. And Kawhi's reasoning was like, hey, I want everyone to be back. Right? That was his words, not mine. Those are Kawhi's words. I did this so that everyone could be back. I know my camera just went out, but I'll start that again. You know, so for him, like for PG, shouldn't that be your mindset too? Right? You should be the one that's saying, all right, I want to do whatever it takes to win a championship. And if that means me taking a little bit less, we're not even asking for a lot. Right? We're not even asking for like, it's not like he's taking a $30 million pay cut. He's taking like a little bit less. And that's the issue that Clipper fans have. Is that this guy is acting like he's getting so much significantly less. And it's not, he's not. They're just offering him, I don't know. Let's wait for the breaking news later. What PG already decided, man. He already decided that he's not taking, he already opted out. If that's what you're talking about. He already opted out. So he's looking for the most money possible, it seems like, because he has max offers on the table on the market. But this LeBron thing, much respect, man. Much respect. I mean, that's what a lot of guys should be doing. And even this, he's prioritizing a roster improvement to improve the roster. That's funny. That's a funny first comment there. I feel like Drew. Oh, yeah. What do you mean is go for the ring or money? I mean, it's going to be like when we see that notification, whatever Paul George decides, that'll tell you what he wants. But honestly, in one sense, I will give him credit here. Like, if you go to Philly, I know it's far away from home, but if Paul George does go to Philly, he has a chance at both. You can get your max contract, and you can also win a ring because that team will be really good and will be one of the contenders in the Eastern Conference. Will they win? Maybe, maybe not. I wouldn't have them as like one of my. I'd still have the Knicks above them. But again, like him choosing Philadelphia, I think gets him both. Like that, as much as like I want to see the Clippers do well, like it's a good team if he goes to Philly. Like him, Embiid, and Maxey, in theory, like all healthy. Yeah, right. And you're right. If Embiid avoids getting injured, that's what I've said many, many times about this fit with Philly is that you can say what you want about Kawhi Leonard and like how much he gets hurt. Joel Embiid gets hurt a lot too. And Joel Embiid does play through it a lot of the times. And as we saw in round 1 this past year, like he was really, really hobbled. Like it was not pretty. But again, the potential of it there is what I think I'm excited about if I'm a Philly fan and we're getting Paul George. And if I'm Paul George, that's pretty enticing, right? You get your money, and you get to play on a really, really good team. in theory. Obviously, everything's in theory because we've seen, in theory, the Clippers should have won a title already or at least gotten to a finals, and they didn't because Kawhi has been hurt or Paul George has been hurt in each of the runs. And even when they were healthy, they didn't really perform up to the standard. So, yeah, that Paul George thing is just very fascinating because CP3 back in 2017, he did the Clippers a favor by doing a sign and trade, opting in, and then being like, hey, you guys did me right. I'll do you right. I'll get you guys players back in place of me, some younger players. And that's when they got Lou Williams. They got Patrick Beverly. They got um, Montrezl Harrell. And they got a really good player, really good package, which ended up, going to the playoffs the next year. And then they got PG and Kawhi out of that. So CP3 did him a solid. Paul George did not seem to want to. This is just some other things. Cam Reddish, obviously he exercised his option. Obviously the big one, Paul George. See if I can go back to, and this one I'll talk about this one really briefly. The Royce O'Neal thing. Um, and you're right, Embiid is kind of ball dominant, but the thing I will say about Embiid is that him and Harden worked really when Embiid won MVP. Him and Harden were really good in a pick and roll. Like they were really lethal, and even Embiid and Maxey together, they were really good this past year when they were healthy in the regular season. Like they were a really good team. And Paul George is a really heavy ISO player. I know that his catch and shoot percentages are really really high, but I question his ability to play off ball a lot. He likes to ball stop a lot with his offense. Um, but I mean I think that trio would work between Embiid, Maxey, and PG. That's probably his best case scenario right now, unless he wants to stay home and be at home with his family. Because I feel like family is incredibly important to Paul George. His mom and dad are at almost every single home game. They live, I mean, obviously he's from Palmdale, so it's pretty close. But yeah, so, but this Royce O'Neal thing, they had to give him this deal. Like, this is kind of the only guy that, it's kind of the only guy that the Suns could get. Like, I think they had his bird rights. I'm not sure 100%, but they had to bring it back. So the 4-year, 44 million, it's good. He fit around. He did pretty well in Phoenix, I must say. He did. And there's only so much Phoenix can do without trading one of their big stars, and you can't even trade Bradley Beal because he's on a no trade clause. So you got to do something. So and also I think they just brought back Bol, who I think they should have brought. They should have played more. If I can go up here, yeah. So Bol returned on a 1-year deal with Phoenix. So Phoenix, look, I don't know what to make of them because I don't think they're trading anybody. I think they're running it back. There's a lot of talk about Houston getting in the running for Kevin Durant. I don't see it. I just don't. And Houston was a player for Paul George if he opted in, but he didn't, so that's kaput as well. So Houston, honestly, I think this is better, right? I think Houston should keep everything. I don't think Houston should blow everything up for a veteran. I think they should just keep their young guys and see how they do because Shengun's really good. Jalen Green's very good. They just got Reed Shepard. We'll see how that goes because he's a good shooter. Jabari Smith, I really like. So I don't know what happens there. We'll see. The new CBA rules wrecked the Warriors' night. It's not just the Warriors, man. The new CBA, I feel like, ruins a lot of teams' chances. The Clippers as well. Um, so look, it's tough. It's really tough. It's really tough, man. But it is what it is. Like that's the deal that CJ McCollum came up with. Now we just have to deal with it at this point. It's gonna wreck a lot of things. Like I think we have to realize that this new CBA is gonna wreck a lot of different scenarios that we think would be cool on paper. And that's why you see a lot of these teams, wanting to express a sign and trade because that's kind of like their only option. Yeah, they hated having super teams. You're absolutely right. I don't think that I think the league was, I think when was it? I think it was after I don't think it was the Suns, but I think it was like after the Warriors dynasty. Oh, was there another? Maybe the Nets. Could have been the Nets when they had the big three. Like after that, they were like, okay, we can't do this anymore. Like we can't have teams just do this. Maybe it was after the Kevin Durant thing. I think that's when it was. They hated the super because honestly, it's cool to have a super team. Like honestly, when LeBron, Wade, and Bosh were in Miami and doing their thing there, like that was fun to watch. As much as we hated them, as much as the league hated them, like it was fun to watch. I'm sure viewership was really high back then. I was watching. I was watching to hate, but I was watching. And you're right, having a traumatic experience. Yeah, listen, the Warriors did unimaginable things to my Clippers many, many years. This is going back to 2015 through 2019, right? They did a lot. Just anytime Steph Curry shot the ball, I thought it was going in. That's how, like, he gave me that type of trauma, I guess you could say. But yeah, those 2017 Warriors, man, good grief, they're so good. The 18 team as well, but the 2019 team, the Clippers took that team to 6 in that first round. That was pretty fun. And that was when the Clippers had just like scrappy players, and Doc Rivers was in the running for coach of the year, and they were an 8 seed and they scrapped and clawed. And that was one of the most fun times to be a Clipper fan, was that time. Because it was just like, hey, we have these guys we can get behind, and they're scrappy, they're tough, they don't back down. Yeah, because of the Wolves' decision in the 2009 draft, you're right. The Clippers passed on Steph Curry as well. If I'm not wrong, they took Blake Griffin instead of Steph Curry. But obviously, Blake Griffin was excellent for the Clippers. He was an All NBA guy, multi-time All Star, Clipper legend, who should have his number retired or up in the rafters at some point with this new logo and the new arena. Blake Griffin is a Clippers legend, but obviously the Timberwolves should have taken Steph Curry. There's a lot of teams that pass on players, right? Um, I mean, this one I'm not really gonna go over because, like he's decent, but can't believe they're still giving Rashawn Holmes this much money. He was decent. I think he's still pretty decent, but I don't know. Washington has a lot of decisions to make. I have no no idea what Washington is doing. But again, look, this move, I think the Grizzlies are going to sign Luke Kennard back. I really do. He's, like it says, he's a career 44% three-point shooter. So this guy, you know, he can shoot it. As a Clipper fan, I know how good Luke Kennard is. I miss him already. I've missed him as soon as they traded him. Uh, and again, the Clippers made a bad decision there. I think they traded him for Eric Gordon and got rid of the John Wall thing. That was a bad decision. But yeah, so I know I've been on here. How long have I been on here? 38 minutes. I just wanted to give my thoughts on this whole situation. How I see it playing out, I'll give you guys this. And I'll go back to PG so we can see him on the screen. I think how this plays out is that there will be hardball played. I kind of just really don't know how this is going to be played out. I really don't. But what I will say is that the Clippers losing him for nothing would hurt. But I think it's just fresh. I think it's just new. I think it's just like, oh, Clipper fans are over it. They're over Paul George. They're over him on the team. And they just want something new. The real fans that have been watching for a long time. They want this era to be over. And, I've gotten so many comments about, well, why would you want to do that? It's a winning player. It's a guy that averages 20 points per game, this many rebounds, whatever. He's an all-star. There's certain times that you just have to say, all right, it's over. Because he didn't come through in the playoffs. He did for 2 games, but 2 games out of 6 is not going to cut it if you want a max contract. That's the big thing. We saw that. We saw the month and a half stretch after the Grammy trip, even during the Grammy trip, where Paul George was horribly inefficient, turnover prone. Um, and Clipper fans see that and they're like, a guy that wants a max did all that? Eh. And look at the guys that got max contracts. OG Anunoby doesn't really stay on the floor, but when he was on the floor with the Knicks, he was a game changer. He was an absolute game changer for the Knicks. Um, and then you look at Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes was a guy that was just an all-star. He's improving, young, lengthy wing that can handle the ball, improved his three-point shot. Okay, I can understand. He's your franchise cornerstone. He's the face of your franchise right now. Give Scotty Barnes that max deal. I get it. Emmanuel Quickly, he got a big deal too. Good young scorer, dynamic, shifty, kind of like Tyrese Maxey, just to a lesser extent. All right, give him that big deal. But Paul George, yeah, he was an all-star, was an all-NBA this year, getting older in his mid-30s, still a very valuable asset to teams, can still give you 20 points per game plus, still has all NBA level talent, but is too inconsistent to trust to give a max deal, especially with his injury history. And I used to go to bat for PG. I used to be the guy that defended him through everything. But we just got to understand, like, he's probably not worth a max. Is he worth a little bit under a max or a little bit more than a little bit under the max? Yeah. I think Clipper fans, the issue that they have is that he won't accept the under the max because that's the holdup. That's why he declined this, because he knows he can get more money. But that's the issue that they have. It's not his talent. It's not the fact that they don't love him. It's just like he's playing hardball with the team that rewarded you with a max contract in 2020 and kept sticking with you, saying, hey, we believe in you. We believe in you and Kawhi. We believe in you and Kawhi. Here you go. It's your team in the playoffs this year. Go ahead. Prove you deserve a max contract. This is your time. Kawhi's out. This is where you take over. Prove to us that you can be a max player. And he didn't do it. And that's what rubs Clipper fans the wrong way. It's not about his talent. It's about playing hardball with a team and with your teammate that just accepted less than a max so he could play with you. So you could keep the core together and go after this thing for 3 more years. That's the issue. Courage, you mentioned there's a possibility PG lands on Sixers, Warriors, Clippers. I don't think the Warriors are in it anymore because they're going to have to open up a lot of cap space in order to do so. I don't think they can even land. Their only option to land him, I think, was the sign and trade. They can't do that anymore unless they really like do a rehaul of their team, which I don't see happening. They're gonna have to get off a lot of contracts to open up that space. I believe they're over the cap. I believe they're a luxury tax team. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they are. So I don't think the Warriors are in the running for PG anymore. I think they're out. I think what it's going to come down to is the Sixers and the Warriors, excuse me, the Sixers and the Clippers, and I think that it's going to take the Clippers to up their offer for him to stay. And I think the Clippers are doing a good job of standing put, staying at what they offered. Good for them. They haven't done that in years past. So I'm glad they are doing that because you got to do that sometimes. Whether it's I don't care what player it is. If you have a philosophy and you have a way of doing things and you have that set in your mind, I'm glad they're doing it that way. Saying, hey, look, all right, go test the waters. We know you love LA. We know you love your family being here and playing here and getting to see you play at every game. We're banking on that. Go ahead, go to Philly, but your family's going to be here in LA. They'll probably, I mean, obviously, he'll probably move his immediate family, but his parents probably won't be able to go to every game. So the Clippers are kind of using that as it's kind of bait. I wouldn't like to use that word, but they're kind of using that over him, like, hey, you could stay with us for a little bit less than the max. You still get a lot of money, but just and you get to stay close to home. Just be comfortable in your situation. Open the new arena. The new arena, by the way. Oh, I can't wait for that new arena, man. But this PG situation really tough. Really tough for Clipper fans at the moment because there's real smoke about him going to the Warriors and the Clippers getting real assets back, like Kaminga and Moody and Wiggins and I think that's why the Warriors said no because they want to keep Kaminga, and I get it. Kaminga's really good. I actually really like him. We're gonna sign off now. I'm not gonna go on too long today, just because I just wanted to give an immediate reaction to this because it's pretty big news, and I've been talking about it a lot. Thank you everybody that tuned in. You guys are the best. Even if I got one viewer, I'm so happy, and I thank you guys so much. We will be on live maybe tomorrow. I'm not gonna be 100% with that. We will be on during the week because free agency starts tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, it does. So we're gonna have a lot of lives coming up this week to discuss a lot of the moves and trades and opting ins and declines. So thank you guys so much for watching. This is Money Mo Media. Again, follow us on TikTok, on YouTube. This is live streaming on YouTube, on Twitch, on X. We will be having a lot more in depth things and shorts and clips from these coming out. So be sure to follow all those. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. This is Grant Mona. I'll see you guys soon.